If you're unlucky in online dating, in this video I'm about to give you 13 reasons why. And these are mistakes almost every single guy is making. And no, that's not an exaggeration. In my 20 years of experience teaching guys to be better at online, most guys are not making 1 or 2 or 3 of these, they're making all 13. So chances are you are too. Very quick point before I get into these 13 mistakes, I will probably cover a lot of these in more detail in future videos. So if you like what you see here, you're going to want to subscribe and catch those future videos as well. Okay, without further ado, first mistake. So now every single app has its own unique algorithm because they're all programmed independently and they're all set up a little bit differently, but they all have a couple of things in common. They all benefit from keeping people on the app, and they all benefit from making money on the app. That's what the app's primary goal is. The app does not care how many relationships, how many marriages they create. The app cares how much money they bring in short-term and long-term. So every single decision they make is with that in mind. Now, this may seem ominous or negative or unfair, but actually it's an opportunity. Because if you understand the app and know how to use it to your advantage, whereas the other 99% of men do not, you are going to get shown to more girls in more favorable ways, more efficiently and better than they are. So as we go through the rest of this list, I'll make the points where the algorithm is involved, but I want you to keep in mind at all times that you're dealing with human beings and a computer. If you forget the computer part of it, you're going to be making things a lot more difficult for yourself than it should be. Couple quick examples of understanding the algorithm. First one is auto swiping right. It doesn't work with most algorithms. Reason being that if you are automatically swiping right, there are 2 things happening. Number 1, the app is rating you based on how selective or unselective you are, and it's correlating unselective to unattractive in many cases. So you're going to be seen by the app as less attractive. Also, if you are willing to swipe right on mediocre girls, the app has no incentive to show you attractive girls. So the auto swipe right strategy, which did actually kind of work in the very early days of online dating, absolutely does not work in most apps now. And that's something you need to understand because the algorithm will be against you if you employ such a strategy. Second one that I would give just as an obvious thing is use of boosts on certain apps. There are certain apps where if you boost after you haven't been on the app in a while and you haven't been shown to very many people, you'll get very good results from that boost. But if you keep boosting and boosting time after time after time, right in quick succession, a couple of things are happening. Number 1, the app has fewer available choices of new people that are active and online to show you, so you're going to get less performance for that boost for that reason. Also, it's my strong belief that the app sort of wants to give you a certain amount of matches to keep you on the site, but doesn't have any interest in giving you tons and tons of matches or more matches than it's determined that a person could reasonably use or reasonably needs. And so if you are getting too many, if you're overusing the boost or you're trying to get too many matches at once, the algorithm will actually throttle you on most sites. And that's been, from objective experience, that's been what I've seen from me and my clients on various sites. Okay, so understanding there is an app, understanding that there is an artificial intelligence behind the scenes controlling what you get for your efforts definitely dictates what efforts are worth putting in and what efforts are not. Common mistake number 2, failure to iterate and failure to optimize. And this is true if you're completely failing and not getting any results. It's also true of most guys that are getting decent results already, but not getting outstanding results. See, the thing is, your profile can always be tweaked and always improved. And I want to kind of give you a metaphor for this. I want you to think of this like marketing, right? Because that's what an online profile is. It's marketing yourself as a dating product, right? As the product that you're offering, the service you're offering is dating you, and you need to present that in the best possible way. And you should know that actual online marketers, they go and they optimize and tweak and they change the headline and they change this word and they change this color and they change this font and they change the layout and they change the time before this pop-up comes up on the page. They're tweaking and changing everything. Now, obviously on an online dating app, there are parameters that you can and can't change, but within what you can change, you should be trying things out. You should be tweaking, testing, trying, optimizing, etc. You should try a different prompt. You should try switching out a photo and see if that helps. You should try taking a different angle as to how you present your job and see if that helps. Even if you're already doing well, it's good to take the parts that you think might be weak, try them out, see if they make either a positive difference, a negative difference, or no difference, and keep improving and keep optimizing. The odds of you writing your best or perfect profile on the first draft are incredibly small. That is why most guys write one draft, fail, and quit. If they were to iterate a little bit, they might get it to a passable bio that would actually get them some results, and they might stick with it. Even guys that are doing okay, there's a tendency as soon as you're doing kind of good enough to just stop improving. I've seen plenty of guys who have had what most people would consider to be successful online dating lives, and then with a few tweaks that I can give them on a phone call, they all of a sudden are getting 3 times or 4 times their results like that. A few quick tweaks can make a huge difference, and everything is worth testing. In particular, the sites are also updating. The sites are giving new things. Like you can do voice prompts now, whereas you couldn't do them before. You can put prompts in certain categories now, which you couldn't do before. You can link your Instagram, which you couldn't do before. There's constantly new features to test. There's constantly different ways you can present yourself. Everything should be tested. Anything that's untested is probably not optimal. Anything that's not optimal is hurting your results. Number 3 common mistake, bad photos. And yes, I know, you're like, that's obvious, I already know bad photos. Yeah, it goes a little deeper than that, okay? I'm gonna tell you specific ways that your photos can be bad and specific ways to make them better. Number 1, please get professional photos, at least 1 or 2. Get 1 or 2 photos where your face is well lit, well framed, and hopefully the background is blurred and the expression on your face is the best, most compelling you can make it, and your face looks its physical best, okay? Get a professional photographer to take literally hundreds of photos and pick the best 2 or 3, okay? That's what you need to do because other guys are doing that, right? And if they're doing that and you're not, they're gonna stand out. And primarily, one of the primary things a girl's looking at in your photo is this person physically attractive? Now, physically attractive does not necessarily mean you need to look like a model in terms of your physique, but if you're shot like a model, that does help a lot. If you're well lit, that does help a lot. If you're wearing good clothes and have good style and good hair in your photos, that does help a lot. It all comes together. With getting professional photos, with having good clothes, having good hair, I would conservatively, and this is being generous and conservative, I would say that you can at least boost your appearance by 2 to 3 rating points on a 10-point scale, if not more. For actually, ironically, the less attractive you are, the more you can probably get out of this. Right? The more you can get out of changing your look, changing your style, getting better photos taken. Regardless of how good looking you are, you absolutely should. Here's a quick little example of this. All right? I had a student recently, he took photos he already had, and he actually had someone on Fiverr airbrush his photos and repost them. And he actually used a rating site to check the photos. He was able to get a 1.5 higher rating on average on a 10-point scale simply by airbrushing his already taken photos. Point being this, effort put into your photos absolutely pays off. Second example, oftentimes when I'm teaching students live, I'll actually have someone on my staff go take photos of them, and then they apply those photos to their online dating profile, and the results are night and day. Couple other common photo mistakes. Number 1, for your non-professional photos, for your real-world photos in your profile, please make sure they don't make you look uncool. Don't have a photo where you're in a crowd and you can't be found in the crowd, where you look like you just blend in. Don't have photos where you're with friends who look lame and ugly. No offense to your friends, but you are trying to put your best foot forward here. And also keep in mind throughout all your photos, you will be judged on your worst photo. The girl will assume your worst photo is the accurate representation of you. So what's the practical consequence of this? If you have 3 good photos and 1 mediocre one, get rid of the mediocre photo. It's hurting your profile, not helping it. If you're in doubt about if a photo is good, err on the side of leaving it out if you already have some good photos in your profile. Common mistake number 4, poor app selection. And this can mean poor overall app selection for your area or region or city, and it can also mean poor app selection for you personally. There are a lot of places in Europe where Tinder is actually quite good, and in fact, that's almost the only app people are on. But in the US, there are a lot of fake profiles on Tinder, and Hinge tends to be better, especially in a lot of the major cities. So knowing your app, knowing what app is good or what app is bad, absolutely can make a huge difference in your results. And by the way, you don't have to be loyal to one app. It's okay to be on multiple apps at the same time. It may be that there's one app that's really, really good, but has maybe a small dating pool, max out that app, and then move over and get the best results you can on another app. Also, as I mentioned in the algorithm, certain apps will throttle you. They'll give you a certain amount of matches per day, and then they'll make it harder to get matches. What you should probably do is get the amount of matches you can on that app and then get some matches from some other apps. Finally, other apps are better or worse for different things. For example, one app that has really fallen out of favor recently, it used to be the biggest app, but it still has some small utility, is Match.com. And the reason Match.com can actually be good in a small measure along with other apps is that it allows you to search and match without swiping and without the other person having to match with you first. So you're able to actually get your message into somebody's inbox without matching, which can be a huge advantage in dating. Now the problem is Match.com has actually become a smaller app compared to what it used to be, and making that your sole app is probably not a robust online dating strategy, but it's certainly a good addition while using other apps as well. Finally, along with this idea that you can be on multiple apps at once, you also shouldn't give up just because you don't succeed on one app. I've seen plenty of people who struggle on one app and absolutely crush it on another app because either of the demographic on that app or because of some peculiarity of the algorithm. Final point in regards to multiple apps. A lot of guys will fail on one app. For example, they'll hop on Tinder, get no success, and then they will just give up on online dating entirely. I know plenty of people who struggle on Tinder but do great on Hinge, for example. Or they struggle on Hinge but do great on Bumble. These things do happen. You want to test the different apps. There are peculiarities in the algorithm, peculiarities in the demographic, different things that might affect your personal success. It's a good idea to try out multiple apps and see where you particularly succeed. Common mistake number 5, boring, lame, or unattractive bio. And again, on this one, you're probably saying, yes, Todd, I know the bio matters. Although some people actually dispute that. Some people think it's all the photos, which is not true. The bio does in fact matter a lot. But beyond just telling you vaguely that bio matters, I want to tell you specifically, do not be boring in your bio. You need to stand out. Most girls are swiping left a whole lot more than they're swiping right. So even if your bio is completely acceptable and completely dateable, but it just doesn't stand out and you're lost in the crowd, you will not get very many matches, if hardly any matches. So the criteria is this: if you were the only person on a dating app and the girl was the only person on a dating app and you matched with her, you probably would be able to get a date with her. But that's not reality. You're not competing with, do you hit the girl's threshold for dating only? You are competing with that, but you're mostly competing with the 100 other guys who hit that threshold who are trying to get seen in front of you. You need to stand out. Being boring, fitting in, being average doesn't cut it. The average guy in online dating gets almost no result. It would actually probably for success be better to stand out in a way that's not particularly attractive than it would be to be boring and fit in. Now, I don't recommend that either. You want to stand out in an attractive way, but the point I'm making is that standing out is absolutely critical. Being boring is a no-go. A good experiment you could do if you had the time and energy to do it would be either make a female profile or find one of your female friends and go on her profile and check out what other guys' bios look like. It's probable that a lot of the things that you think are brilliant and creative and interesting and good bios are on every single bio of every single guy in your entire city, and you think you're being cool and standing out and being attractive, and what you're doing is you're being blatantly average. You need to stand out. Pick interesting prompts, answer prompts in interesting ways. Answer prompts in ways that show unique personality, answer prompts in a way that is edgy. A good mental model is this: if you had 10 girls from online be like, he's kind of okay, you're probably getting 10 left swipes, right? Or you're 10 like, oh, he's average, he's like the typical guy on here. Whereas if you had a bio where 8 girls were like annoyed and offended by it, and 2 girls were like, oh my God, this guy's really interesting, really cool, that would actually on a practical level get you more results than that bio where it got more overall kind of appeal. Right? It's more about the number of girls that are in love with your bio rather than the number of girls that will tolerate or accept your bio. That's what you're really going for online. Now, quick asterisk with this, please don't be offensive in your bio. Please don't get black marks against you or get your bio banned. When I say stand out, I don't mean stand out by being rude or offensive. That's not a good idea. Typical mistake number 6, not standing out in general. I sort of mentioned this in the bio, the fact that your main competition is not whether you're quote unquote good enough for the girl, it's whether you are out competing all the other guys that are technically also good enough for the girl. That applies in your bio because that's the first point of reference, and it applies the most in your bio probably because it is the first thing a girl's seeing and she's making some level of decision about you right then and there. However, most guys are boring and fit in throughout everything, especially in their texting conversation and their overall vibe of the interaction, also on the date. So this idea of standing out instead of fitting in applies to texting, it applies to the date as well. So this applies less the further you get down the road, but it does apply at every level. Think of it this way. Most girls swipe left more than they swipe right. Most girls do not give phone numbers or go on dates with the majority of their matches, and most girls do not sleep with the majority of guys they go on dates with. So at each point along the journey, fewer guys are succeeding than failing. You need to stand out to be in the number of guys that's succeeding. Finally, if you do somehow manage to stand out enough in a positive way, you're gonna have an effect that's a little bit like a viral video, where it gets shown to more and more and more people. If your profile stands out in a positive way and girls are reacting positively and in a standout way to your profile, you're gonna get shown to tons of girls and your results are gonna be exponential. Just one more reason standing out helps. Common mistake number 7, awful text game that is basically shooting yourself in the foot. Most guys text aimlessly for days or even weeks and never get to the point, never ask the girl out, and then eventually the interaction just peters out and goes dead. Other guys are trying to make plans right from the first text, and the girl thinks they're super needy, super desperate, super pushy, gets turned off, and gives them silence. Other guys are trying to be really sexual and end up the girls thinking they're very, very weird, whereas other guys are the opposite and they never get to the point, never bring up a man-to-woman topic, and end up with the girls, even though they met on a dating app, thinking, oh, this guy would make a good friend. So there's a huge variety of common texting mistakes, and it's probably, I mean, that can and will be a whole other huge video that I'll make about texting. But in the meantime, check out, I made an entire guide to online messaging. You can check it out at the link below and in the description, completely for free. Tons of information there on exactly how to text the right way. Common mistake number 8, bad texting habits. And this is distinct from sending bad text. What I mean here is that your overall manner of texting is really inefficient and really ineffective. Okay, so for example, when you are matching with girls or trying to match with girls that don't even know you exist yet, if you're spending 10 minutes looking at her profile and trying to come up with a message for every single girl, and then that message that you spent so much of your dear precious time on goes to a girl whose account isn't even active and will never see it, that was a waste of your time and that was incredibly foolish. So what you need is an efficient strategy. You need a way to come up with good texts, maybe not the perfect text, but to come up with good texts consistently, reliably, and quickly without it taking up your whole day. So in online game, you are working volume to a certain extent. There's a certain amount of girls who you're gonna match with, a certain amount of girls you're gonna get dates with, a certain amount of girls you'll get into relationships with. And there's a certain amount of girls at the very top of that funnel that will never ever see your profile even if you like them. So you wanna be very, very efficient about this. The first few messages typically should not take you a long time. There should be a general format to them. You want to oftentimes notice something about the girl's profile, have a general format for how to take that information, put it into a message, send the message off, and you want that off within 30 seconds, a minute at most. You don't want to be spending tons and tons of time on girls you've never met, right? You need to be efficient about your texting strategy. On the other hand, once you've been texting with a girl quite a bit, and it's time to set up a date with her, maybe that message is worth investing a little more on because that girl's actually bought in. So you want to be smart about this, but in general, most guys are spending way, way, way too long on their messaging and they're being incredibly inefficient. So they're spending, 10 or 20 minutes messaging one girl that may never see it, and in doing that, they've missed out on messaging 10 other girls who would have seen it and would have liked them. That's not a very good strategy. Common mistake number 9, trying to do it for free, i.e. not spending any money on the apps. Again, remember the algorithm. What does the app exist for? It exists for keeping people there and making money from the people that are there. So if the app has a choice between making one customer happy that spends money and another customer that doesn't spend money, which one do you think it's going to favor? Who do you think the app likes more? And the app has an incentive, or technically the owners of the app have an incentive to make it so that people want to stay on and spend money. So if you're spending money, they have an incentive to keep you happy. That's the way the app works. So it makes sense in many cases, I would say probably most cases, to think about being a member, gold or platinum or whatever, on the app. It also makes sense in many cases to buy a rose or a super like or something like that in order to be seen by a girl that would otherwise not see you. Now, obviously, you should not be just spending money blindly. You need to test each thing. Try it and see if it works. But understand that if used correctly, most of the ways you can spend money are effective. That's why they exist. If they weren't effective, people would stop using them. They would no longer be a feature of the app. All right, so don't just spend money blindly. As with everything, you need to test, you need to iterate, you need to see if it's actually working for you. But don't come in with this mentality that you're going to succeed for free, whereas other people are spending money. If someone's spending money to be seen by girls and you're not, they're going to be seen by a lot more girls than you are. And in the grand scheme of things, look at how much money you make doing your job, how much money you make in your life in general, and how much money it costs on the app. and then think about how many extra hours you have to spend swiping if you don't spend that money, it's actually a really poor return on investment not to spend the money. Common mistake number 10, not knowing how to properly set the date. One common implementation of this is guys who just never get to the point and text and text and text and never set the date. Second common implementation of this is the guy who is having a platonic conversation and then just out of nowhere just suggests the date right away. Also, very commonly, guys will try and make the whole date happen in one text. Their first text about the date will be like, hey, let's get together on Tuesday at 7 o'clock at this restaurant for this drink. Incredibly, incredibly specific and incredibly like binding. It's almost like you're making a contract with the girl, which feels very obligating to her. There's a lot of problems with that. Let's say she doesn't drink. Well, now she has to say no for a reason that has nothing to do with not liking you. Let's say she's not free at that time. Well, now she has to say no for a reason that has nothing to do with not liking you. Let's say she just doesn't like that restaurant. Well, now she feels weird about going there, but it has nothing to do with her not liking you. If this was broken down into individual stages, you'd be a lot more likely to get yeses along each individual stage. Also, there's a phenomenon in human psychological behavior that's called commitment and consistency, or an implementation of that called a yes ladder, which is that once somebody said yes to one thing, they're more likely to say yes to the next related thing and the next related thing and the next related thing. So by getting yeses along the way to each little thing, you're more likely to get the yes to the big thing at the end. If you try and make all the yeses at once, you're more likely to get a no. Another major thing with setting plans, use the technology available to you. And by this specifically, I mean the phone and or FaceTime. Setting plans via text is much harder than setting plans via a phone call because it's a much less personal form of communication. And also, maybe even more importantly, plans made only via text when you've never met the person are much more likely to flake than plans made via a phone or a FaceTime call. In my experience doing online dating, when I do a phone call or a FaceTime, the girl almost always shows up, basically never flakes, and if she does flake, they reschedule. It's not like a real flake. They actually do come out eventually. And when they show up, they're actually excited to see you. And they have much more of an idea this is gonna go really well. They're much more down for kissing on the first date and even things beyond kissing on the first date. Right? They're much more down for good things to happen because they're already coming in with a positive assessment of you, feeling like they know you. It already feels kind of like a second date to them when they show up on the first date. So a lot of the things they wouldn't do on a first date, they suddenly will because it effectively feels like a second date. So use the phone, use FaceTime. It's dramatically useful for preventing flakes. It also will make all of your dates, I rarely say all, it'll make virtually any date show up more excited to see you and make the date itself go better as well. Common mistake number 11, not having a plan for the date. A lot of guys assume that they're just gonna show up on the date, and if it's meant to be, it'll be like a storybook romance, and doves will start playing harps around them and flowers will come out of the air and things will just go as they're supposed to in like a Disney cartoon. That's not how it works in the real world. If you want your dates to go well, you need to have a plan. You should go to a venue for the date that is conducive to the date. It's conducive to you and the girl getting to know each other in an intimate, romantic way. It should be a place where if the girl were to kiss you, it wouldn't feel out of place. Otherwise, it's less likely she's gonna kiss you. It's also important, if you want things beyond kissing to happen on your dates, it's important that you be in a venue close to your place or her place or somewhere where such things can likely happen. It's really a good idea to have a few different plans or a few different ideas of things you can do so that if the date's going really well, it can proceed one way. If it needs a little more time, it can proceed another way, etc. But you need to have a plan for your date. You should go into the date in such a way that if the girl likes you and things can progress very fast to sex, relationship, etc., that is an available option. If you set up a date where that's not possible, you're gonna end up with a lot of frustration. Also, specifically, some plans are better than others. So typically, drinks are a better date than coffee because the environment is more conducive to romance. There aren't people running around with kids that might make the girl feel awkward about kissing. It's usually more romantically lit. All of those type of things do make a big difference. Also, going to shows for the first date is usually pretty bad. Comedy shows in particular are one people do that's terrible. If you go to a comedy show with a girl, you're not gonna be interacting with the girl. You and the girl will both be interacting with the comedian on stage and watching the act, and you won't have a lot of time to actually get to know the girl and move things along in the way that a date actually should. The primary purpose of a date is for two people to interact and get to know each other in the most favorable way. If you set up a date where you're not actually interacting with the girl, you're kind of wasting that date. Common mistake number 12, lack of consistency or routine in your online dating. This one may surprise you. This is something nobody ever talks about, but it is absolutely critical. I mentioned earlier, for example, the thing where the algorithm will stop giving you matches if you've gotten too many. If you are, for example, doing 5 hours of online dating in one day, as opposed to doing half an hour a day for 10 days, which is the same total amount of time, you will almost certainly get more matches out of that half an hour a day than you would have out of 5 hours in one day. So being consistent in small increments will get you better returns from the apps and from their algorithms than you would if you were doing it all at once. Also, the numbers you get by doing things in a more consistent way will be worth more. So let's say on Saturday, you do 5 hours of online dating stuff, right? And you get a whole bunch of numbers. But those numbers are going to come through in a few days, and a lot of those numbers are going to come through around the same time, right? If you're going very fast, they might all come through Saturday, Sunday, Monday. If you're going a little bit slower, they might all come through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but you're going to get a glut of numbers all at once. And when you're trying to make plans, having a bunch of numbers all at once isn't as useful because you have to, each date takes a certain amount of time. You can't schedule more than a few dates in one day, and for most people, you're not scheduling more than one date in a day. So the point is, having all those numbers at once isn't as useful. If instead of getting like 10 numbers all at once on a Tuesday, you get 2 numbers a day for 5 straight days, you would have much better overall dating results from that. Also, just in terms of having online dating be part of your life and having it be healthy to your lifestyle, it's nice to have balance. And the optimal time to do swiping, for example, is while you're doing other things. So let's say, for example, at your work, you have a Monday conference call that is absolutely boring, absolutely a waste of time, but you have to be on it for an hour and they have to be able to see that you're there. But you're never gonna speak, you're never gonna interact, you're just there. That would be an optimal time to do a quick boost and swipe on an app for an hour while doing that meeting. And that could sustain a good portion of your dating life if you have a good profile, good photos, and good messaging. But being consistent in small increments is far, far, far better than going all in for a short period of time and then stopping and all in and stopping. There are definitely diminishing returns each day for your time, and there are diminishing returns overall for your time. The first half hour you spend on online dating in a given day is going to be worth far more than the 6th half hour you spend. Last but not least of the unlucky 13, not playing to win, or actually technically even beyond that, not even believing you can win. The biggest mistake of all these that guys make in online dating is giving up. So many guys, they get on, they make a cursory half-assed profile, they don't get any what they consider to be quality matches, and they just say, oh, online dating sucks, and they give up. We talked about the need to iterate. We talked about the need to improve your prompts. We talked about the need to improve your photos. If you do each of those things, your results will get a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better, until eventually they will get good. I have yet to meet the person who, with proper efforts, cannot get some results from online dating. But the vast majority of guys, even guys who are good looking, successful, intelligent, get on online dating, give up because they don't get results, and because they've given up, never get those results. First of all, believing winning is possible, and secondly, playing to win rather than giving up. Playing to get the maximum you can in this area of your life, it's important. The person who you spend your life with, the person you date, is going to make a huge impact in your life. It is worth putting some time and effort into the mechanism that helps you find that person. It's worth getting good photos taken. They will pay off for you tremendously. It's worth writing good prompts. They will pay off for you tremendously. It's worth iterating and improving those prompts. It will absolutely pay off in a huge way. And it's worth getting your texting game better. It'll help you not only in online game, but also in live game, etc. It will pay off for you in an absolutely huge way. Each of these skills will make an incremental difference. All of them together will get you dramatically successful. Any of them improved will get you significantly more successful. But with all of this, you need to have this spirit, this idea, I will succeed at this, I will not give up, I will not stop. You need to be tenacious, right? You need to decide, I'm going to win. If you decide that and you're willing to put in the effort, you will find a way.